An important class of widgets allow the user to choose one or more from a set of options, either to choose a command or a value. These are either called buttons or menus. Menus usually have a set of items displayed on the screen at the same time. Menus can either be always displayed on the screen, or they can pop up when a certain mouse button is pressed. After choosing an item in a menu, the user might be required to make another choice using an additional menu called a submenu. If there are too many items to be displayed at once, the menu might also be scrolled. Here are various kinds of menus.
Markup may be the first system to implement pop-up menus. Whenever the middle mouse button is depressed, the command menu appears. Moving the mouse around selects the menu symbol corresponding to a markup command. Moving up or down reveals more menu rows, such as font selection rows. When the mouse button is released, the menu closes and the cursor changes shape to correspond to the chosen command.
Window menus are popped up by pressing both mouse buttons down at once. Once a stack of menus is visible, only the right mouse button must be held down. The left mouse button can then be clicked on the title of any menu in the stack to pop it to the front of the stack. Once the desired menu is in front, the user selects the desired menu command by moving the cursor to it. If the user releases the mouse buttons without any command being highlighted, then nothing will be executed. Clicking the left mouse button or releasing both buttons executes the command.
What we had is the inverse of before, a stationary pointer and a moving menu. To select a triangle, I simply place the triangle over top of the marker and release the button, and it's anchored. In this case, we'll point, depress the button, and when I release it with a triangle, you notice the next time I depress, the triangle comes up over top of the pointer, so a simple down-up motion will get the item.
You point to the pitch where you want the note to appear, depress the cursor button, and what you have is a marker laid down at the space pointed at and a moving menu that tracks the cursor. Conceptually, what we now have is a stationary pointer and a moving menu, and we make a selection from the moving menu by simply placing the note duration desired over top of the marker and releasing the button.
In Smalltalk, the menus are invoked by pressing and holding a mouse button. Here I press the middle mouse button on the background. This is a hierarchical menu. When I release the button, the mouse jumps to the next level of menu. Releasing again to the next level of menu. Let me do that again. This time, the menu has remembered my selection from last time. Everything's lined up to make repeated application very easy.
Pop-up menu here. As I move the mouse, the menu items invert. I can choose the one I want. If I wish to cancel and make no selection, I roll out and let go. There are many submenus on this, as indicated by the little triangle out to the right. Rolling out to the right allows me to choose those. Rolling back in allows me to go up and pick other submenus. You can go quite deeply in this, find exactly what you'd like to do.
In Star, menu buttons appear on title bars and the attention window. Menu buttons are easily distinguished from other buttons by their placement and because they always contain a graphical object instead of text. Menus only appear when a menu button is selected, and menu buttons are only found in well-defined places. Menus are not popped up from a window or region. The menus pop up to the left of the menu button. The menu commands are highlighted on mouse button down and executed on mouse button up. The command is not executed if the cursor is moved off of the menu before the mouse button is released. There are never any non-functioning menu commands, that is, grayed out selections. If the menu command doesn't make sense in the current context, then it isn't visible. This means that the contents of the menu will change depending upon the state of the object. The preferred method of manipulating an object is through the keyboard keys. These generic commands, delete, copy, move, and show properties, perform the same way regardless of the type of object selected. For less frequently used commands, or if none of the generic commands provide exactly what is needed, the soft function keys are used. The next best means of manipulating an object is to use command buttons on the title bar. Finally, the menu buttons are used, but only if the previous methods are not appropriate.
Macintosh pull-down menus allow the user to issue commands to the computer. A menu bar appears at the top of the screen and lists all available menus. To scan the menus, press the mouse button in any menu title, then move the mouse across the menu bar. Each title will highlight in turn, and its menu will pull down. To issue a command, move the mouse to the desired menu item and release the mouse button. The menu item will blink to visually confirm the choice. To make no choice, move the mouse button until it is outside of any pull-down menu and release the mouse button.
Cedar tools use a variety of menu types. Windows have a control menu hidden under their caption at the top of the window. When the cursor moves into a caption, the menu appears and the cursor changes shape. Clicking on window controls can destroy, resize, move, or close a window. Many application windows provide a set of application-specific menu buttons just below the caption in each window. Some of these buttons reveal and hide additional menus. Cedar pop-up menus are used by applications with many user interface components. Pop-up menus provide instant documentation for each menu item and allow mouse and keyboard accelerators to invoke menu operations without causing the menu to appear.
In the alternate reality kit, menus can be created by attaching and activating appropriate buttons. In this case, we have a hierarchical menu. Activating the items in that creates submenus. In ARC, however, everything is a physical object, including these menu parts, so they can be picked up, carried, thrown, or even acted upon by other buttons.
The Andrews system uses pop-up menus which are displayed as a stack of cards. Within a window, the same set of menus will always appear no matter where the cursor is located. The Window Manager menus are displayed if the cursor is over a title bar. The user selects a menu card by moving the mouse left and right. The user selects an item on a card with up and down movements. With practice, these horizontal and vertical movements are sometimes combined. By moving the cursor into the mouse hole provided, the menus immediately flip to the last selected operation. The user can choose not to make a menu selection by releasing the mouse buttons outside of the menus.
Viewpoint menu buttons behave identically to star menu buttons. However, the look was changed slightly to add a 3D drop shadow to make the buttons look more like real-world push buttons. In addition, menu buttons now appear on property sheets when there's a large number of choices for a particular value. This form of menu button is used instead of a large array of choice parameters or radio buttons.
One of the interesting things about menus in general is that they provide a mixed mode interface. Naturally, the mouse can be used to select an item from the menu. However, the user may choose to use the keyboard, either to type enough of the name of an item to uniquely identify it, or to step through the items.
This is a 2-item pie menu, and since there's only 2 items, each item gets half of the circle, so it's very easy to make a selection from one of them. And you see it's echoed on the mousey display. Both items are very close to the cursor. Now, when I go and select the lower submenu, it pops up this huge pie menu of the country names. Now, each of these labels has to be pushed out by the layout policy so that they don't overlap. And while it takes up a lot of screen space, still each of the menu items is very close to the cursor. Now, the more items you have, the smaller a wedge each one gets. But you can still get more angular precision by moving the cursor out further and further as the wedge gets bigger and bigger. What this menu is a spiral pie menu that only displays a maximum of 8 items. And you can scroll to more items by spinning the cursor around the center of the menu. And this little graphic here tells you that there are more items to the left, or clockwise or counterclockwise. You can make a selection, pop up the submenu, and decide that you don't want that submenu and pop back a level by pressing the middle button down and releasing. When I click the button, it pops up a hue saturation submenu. Now, the hue is the direction, and the saturation is the distance that I move out. So as I move around this, it shows me the color I've selected in the menu center. Select one of those fonts, and up pops a submenu showing the different styles of that font. Now, I move in one of the directions to select that style, and the distance that I move selects the point size of that font. So as I move in and out, the point size changes and is displayed in the menu center. What happens here is that when you poke out, it makes a flexible lever that the further out you go, the more flexible it becomes, and you have much finer control over the number.
Macintosh menus may have submenus, where an item on one menu may be the title of a submenu rather than a command. Such items are marked with a triangular symbol pointing to the right. It is recommended that submenus be only one deep and that they be homogeneous, for example, a menu of fonts rather than a potpourri of unrelated commands. Macintosh pop-up menus allow the user to choose one out of a list of several items. Press on the shadowed box showing the current value and three things will happen. The title will highlight, the item will highlight, and the menu of choices will appear. Releasing the mouse button at this point will safely abort, leaving the choice unchanged. To choose another item, move until the desired item highlights and release the mouse button. To abort making a choice, you may also move the mouse outside the menu and release the mouse button. Macintosh menus are sometimes made to be torn off the menu bar. They then become utility windows that float above document windows. To tear off a menu, drag down through the menu and past the dead zone until a flashing rectangle appears. Drag the rectangle wherever you wish and release the mouse button. If you release the mouse button in the dead zone that immediately surrounds the menu, then no choice will be made and the menu will not be torn off.
Directional menus initiate direct manipulation functions. The user presses the mouse button and moves the cursor radially to the desired function. The menu's display is delayed to prevent unnecessary flashing.
Here's a menu where the items go back and forth when you press on them. This menu is a menu of colors, and there are 4 arrows. These are separate icons that define the picture. Here's a little number pad. It sort of simulates three-dimensional pressing.
Now when I move the mouse over one of the items, it pops up. And these different items are mouse sensitive, and I can click on them to see a definition. And naturally, same as with the text menus, I can click on the background here to pop everything up and see all of the buttons at once. These pictures here have embedded graphical links to the people. I can click on their head to get a definition.
The control or menu bar menu is opened by pressing the left mouse button down while over the menu. In the case of the control menu, a drop-down menu always appears which has standard commands used for controlling window size and location. In the case of the menu bar menu, the item may be a command or may represent a drop-down menu. The user moves the mouse pointer over the item of interest, then presses the button, and the command is carried out. If the user does not select a command, the menu will remain open until the mouse button is pressed somewhere else on the display, at which time the menu will be removed. Extended commands, ones which require more information from the user, are indicated by an ellipsis at the end of the menu name, and they result in the appearance of a dialog box. The control menu is opened by pressing the Alt key and spacebar at the same time. The user moves to menu items using the arrow keys and selects items using the Enter key. The menu can be removed by using the Escape. The menu bar menu is opened by pressing the Alt or F10 key to activate the menu bar, then moving to menu items by using the arrow keys. Items are then selected using the Enter key. Accelerators, or hotkeys, are usually available for some functions in programs and result in program commands being carried out directly by a keyboard action without opening the menus. Special key sequences called mnemonics are also available, which invoke commands by combinations of the Alt key and an underlined letter in the program command text.
OpenLook provides a special type of button called a menu button. It is distinguished visually by a small arrow on the right. Pressing the menu mouse button displays a menu. Pull right items are indicated by the same type of arrow. These menus are displayed when the pointer is dragged right by an amount that may be altered by the user. Items which will display a pop-up window are indicated with ellipses. OpenLook menus may contain either ordinary items which behave rather like buttons or settings which set state. One menu item is indicated as the default by an oval ring when the menu is first displayed or the user moves off the menu. The default may be changed by the user by holding down a modifier key when displaying the menu. When the menu mouse button is released, the new item becomes the default. Menu buttons may also be pressed like ordinary buttons with the Select mouse button. When the Select button goes down, the menu previews the default action, which occurs when the mouse button is released. Moving off any OpenLook control before releasing the mouse button cancels the action. In addition to pull-down menus behind menu buttons, OpenLook provides pop-up menus which are located in any pane, on the window background, and the workspace or desktop. Pressing the menu mouse button anywhere in these areas will pop up a menu at the pointer location. OpenLook menu buttons may also appear in abbreviated form. Only the arrow is shown within the button. This is most frequently used with a label to provide a clearly marked set of choices from a menu. An abbreviated menu button without a label is provided in all base windows for window management functions, and by default makes the window iconic. All OpenLook menus may be used in two manners: press, drag, release, where the menu button is pressed and held while the pointer is dragged, or stay-up mode, where the menu button is clicked, that is to say, pressed and released with no appreciable motion. In this case, the menu remains on the display until an item is selected or a mouse button is pressed off the menu. In addition, all menus may contain an optional pushpin, as with the workspace menu. The OpenLook pushpin is toggled by pressing the Select mouse button. When a menu is pinned, it becomes a window which may be moved by dragging with the Select mouse button pressed. As with stay-up menus, the menu items now behave as ordinary buttons or settings. When a pushpin is toggled out, the window is dismissed.
3D transitions add a whole new perspective to traditional two-dimensional fixtures. Well, this looks nice on a window, but let's make it take over the whole screen.
These are menus on the next computers. Menus may be moved on the screen by dragging them by the title bar. The user can click on an item to perform a command. The user may also drag between commands. Some items have a letter at the right edge. This letter may be typed while holding down the command key to perform the same command that the menu item performs. An arrow on the right of an item indicates a submenu. Submenus are used to group commands hierarchically. Clicking on an item with an arrow brings up its submenu. A command in the submenu may then be chosen. The submenu remains visible so that successive commands may be chosen. If a different item with a submenu is clicked, that item's submenu replaces the current submenu. A submenu may also be dismissed by clicking the entry that brought it up. If a menu is going to be used often, it may be torn off by dragging the menu by its title bar.
Torn off menus remain visible even if other submenus are used. Their commands are accessible at any time. Torn off menus are dismissed by clicking the close box in the upper right corner. This is a pop-up list on the next computer. A pop-up list lets the user choose between mutually exclusive choices while using minimal screen space. A pop-up list looks like a button but is distinguished by the icon on the right of the button. When the user clicks on the button, available choices appear in a list. The user then drags between the choices, releasing the mouse button within the one he desires. The button's title shows the current choice. If the user releases the mouse outside of the list, no change is made.
I can select an icon and use the pop-up to choose an operation. Here I'll choose to remove this icon. In this directory view, no icons are selected, so that when I choose the pop-up, all of the selections on the menu that apply to selected icons are grayed out. All of the global selections, however, that operate on the whole view are still enabled. I can use the right mouse, move over to the right, and have a submenu. I can choose from here to arrange all the icons by date.
Motif supports pull-down, pop-up, and option menus. Motif pull-down menus are typically accessed from a menu bar at the top of an application's window. The menu bar contains one or more cascade buttons, and when mouse button 1 is pressed in a cascade button, the associated pull-down menu is posted. Dragging through the pull-down arms the various menu options, which may be push buttons, toggle buttons, or additional cascades. Pull-down menus may also contain labels, visual separators, and other objects which cannot be armed. Releasing the mouse button in an armed menu option triggers the associated application function. Motif lists provide several different techniques for the selection of items. In single selection mode, click mouse button 1 over an item to make it the selection. Multiple selection mode is similar, but items are not automatically deselected when a new selection is made. Instead, click on a selected item to deselect it. In browse selection mode, dragging through a list causes each of the members to highlight in turn. Optionally, the application can be notified as each member is highlighted, and the user can observe the effect as each member of the list is selected in turn. In Motif's extended selection mode, a range of items is selected by dragging over the range with mouse button 1 down. The range may be given a new endpoint by shift-clicking mouse button 1 over an item. A new range may be added to the selection by holding the Control key down while dragging with mouse button 1. From the keyboard, use the arrow keys to move the location cursor from item to item, and the space bar to select the current item. For keyboard extended selection, use the arrow keys to move to the start of a range. Press the space bar. Use the arrow keys to move to the end of the range and press Shift space bar. The range is selected. To add another range to the selection, use Control space bar at the start and Shift space bar at the end. Motif applications are notified whenever the selection changes. In addition, Motif applications are informed when a user double-clicks within the list. This invokes whatever action the application chooses to define as the list's default action. Motif pop-up menus may be displayed by pressing mouse button 3, or in implementations with fewer mouse buttons, whatever button or key button combination has been bound to the menu pop-up function. As with pull-down menus, releasing the mouse button in an armed option triggers the associated application function. Releasing the mouse when no option is armed simply pops the menu back down. Option menus are a Motif alternative to radio boxes. Pressing the mouse button in the hotspot of an option menu posts its associated menu pane. Releasing the mouse on an option makes it the current selection of the option menu. All Motif menus can be traversed from the keyboard alone. The menu bar key, F10 by default, moves Motif's location cursor to the first entry in the menu bar. The arrow keys can then be used to move amongst menu bar entries or into any pull-down or cascade. The cancel key, Escape by default, exits the menu system. The return key selects the currently armed menu option and then exits the menu.
Apollo Computer's Open Dialog product includes a set of OSF Motif style classes. Adding to OSF Motif functionality, these classes allow option menu buttons inside of pop-up menus, as well as allowing check and radio buttons.
Pressing mouse button 1 on any of the menu names will pull down the menu. You can see you can sweep across the menu bar to view all of the menu items. Menu items either take an immediate action, like the delete here. You would select a mail message and then pull down delete, and that delete would happen. You can see in our menus there are also separators to separate functional items. This is an example of what we call pull right menus. And you can see the kind of arrow graphics is what illustrates a pull right, and pull rights can be nested to any level, although we try to keep them to 3 or under. Menu items with 3 dots after them bring up a dialog box. Menu items that are disabled, not currently active, are shown in a kind of grayed manner. That's to show you that that operation is not available at the moment. If you press the middle mouse button in deck windows in the work area of an application, you get a pop-up menu. And these can be position sensitive. Here we get one pop-up menu for a mail drawer that shows operations you can do with drawers. Get a different pop-up menu for a mail folder, and yet a third different pop-up menu for a mail message. They are all functions that are specific to the context in where you're pointing. Menus, pop-up menus also have memory of the last choice, so the next time you bring up a pop-up menu, it's positioned at your last selected choice, in this case delete. Option menus are a way to provide, to save space, but still provide the choice of one among many in deck windows dialog boxes. Here we see that alignment is selected as justified. Pressing with mouse button 1 shows you your complete choices, left, right, justified, and centered. So this is like a pop-up menu in some respects. And we can select left here, and now the paragraph attribute gives left alignment. List boxes provide choices of many things to scroll through and choose from. You can see list boxes have a scroll bar on their right-hand side, and the currently selected item is highlighted.